and I'd have these shows where I'm like, I'm so sorry, folks. My voice left me today, and I'm going to try my best. So stuff like that. Or like, hey, I just had surgery, and you might hear my voice break a little bit, but he just didn't. He's like, I wouldn't say that. Don't say it as much or at all even. People don't notice, generally speaking. I have a caveat to that. When you're listening, when I'm playing music, most of my shows it's at a restaurant or whatever, and people are like, and they're looking at their phone, and and the music's playing, right? But when you see it, rarely it happens with us, sometimes, but when I watch other really killer bands, and people are there like, wait a second, and they want to listen to the band like, wait, I want to hear what they're doing.
Yeah.
People notice that, and they can't even tell you why, but they notice the shit that's happening right. They also notice the shit that's happening wrong. And they might not be like, well, that Alex Henley, his voice cracked 14 times. And no, but they're like, that was okay. I didn't kind of remember half the set because we were talking about that great thing we were talking about.
Right.
That's what people, they might not know it, but they notice it. Even if they're musicians, they might even notice it and still give you a pass. It's still fucking noticed.
In every single story you tell, you're the hero or the victim, never the villain. You're on the run from your true self, can't say how you really felt, 'cause this whole world you built on a lie.
Welcome back, America, to another episode of Pints and Professionals. What you just heard was new music by Grayson Turner. That song, Out of Luck, can be found on Spotify. Go check him out, as well as follow him on Instagram and his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of good stuff up there. Today's episode brings us to Alex Henley. Alex Henley is a local, well, I'll call him local. He's based out of Bastrop, but he also plays a bunch here in town in Austin, Texas. He's also a Brazilian Jiu-jitsu gym owner and instructor. And we talked about he talked about his business and what it takes to run a business, as well as what it takes to run a business through the pandemic. We talk about his musical career, how he toured in France, and how there's a cool little music scene coming out of Bastrop that we should be aware of. Apparently there's also a music festival out there. So a lot of good stuff in this episode. And without further ado, here's Alex. Are you excited about the wind stopping?
Yeah, the stopping part, yes. Man, I left my gym yesterday around 3, and it was kind of windy but normal, and then I came back to my gym around 5, and it was windy and like hazy, like terrifying. End of days hazy.
It was like I've been reading, I was on the Reddit because that's how I consume my news now, because that's
on the Reddit. You say like an old man. I was on the Reddit.
I was on the Reddit, and a lot of the comments were like, man, I didn't know Arrakis was so close to Austin, because Arrakis is the town or city or planet. No, it's a planet in Dune. I'm like, that perfectly describes the sandstorm that just blew in. I didn't like it. It sucked.
Yeah. And you said you were having some allergies from it, right?
Yeah. Well, it could be from other things, COVID, coronavirus. I don't know. Who knows these days?
Right.
I think you're safe.
I'm not.
Yeah. So where is your gym located?
My gym, my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, is located in Bastrop, Texas. That's about 30 or 35 minutes southeast of Austin, past the airport. Have you been out there yet?
No. My buddy, he's a defense lawyer. He was actually on here. He's a jiu-jitsu guy as well. And I was like, hey, do you know this guy? And he goes, no, I don't, because I guess it's kind of a small, tight-knit community.
It is, and I have some stuff to say about that. We'll come back around to it, yeah.
And then, so I didn't know it was in Bastrop that your gym is located.
Until right now, you didn't know that?
No, I did not.
That's
okay,
right. That's cool.
But how aggressively hugging are you doing it to your fellow brethren? You're aggressive hugger, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Absolutely. Involuntary hugs. Yeah. Whether you want to or not.
What got you into the sport?
Man, like a lot of people, it was MMA. Kind of. I've just started watching that. I'm a musician, which I hope we talk a little bit about.
No,
too,
we will. Yeah, we'll get to that point.
But I've always been a pacifist in my life. I got my ass handed to me a few times as a kid. And
as we all have.
And try to dodge it as much as I could, which I still do, honestly. Knowing what I know, I can't go around picking or really being a part of fights. But I just started as I kind of grew into my manhood when I was a dad and all that stuff. And and I just like stayed up late watching kickboxing one night, and then another night it was a
Yeah.
Tyson marathon, and then a while later it was like a UFC the show Ultimate Fighter marathon, and I was glued to it all day. I was like, this is amazing, and I hear them talking about jiu-jitsu and like, well, I think the jiu-jitsu is that stuff on the ground. I don't know, and they talk about guard, and I'm like, which one has guard? What the fuck is guard? I don't know. I was like, I think I figured out what guard is because they keep talking about that guy. Anyway, it was really fun and fascinating, and I always loved roughhousing with like friends and brothers and stuff.
Yeah.
I always lost, but I didn't care. I loved it.
How many brothers do you have? Or
I have 2 brothers that I was raised with, but not really with. I was kind of raised like an only child, but I saw them enough.
Yeah.
Mostly I would roughhouse with friends. And, and even like when I started living on my own, I have roommates. We'd have toke or drink a little bit and just roughhouse a little bit, and then they'd always end up crushing me, and I'd be like, okay, let me out. It was fun, but I was like,
tap.
they were my buddies, so I felt safe. It was good, man.
Yeah.
And man, I really sucked when I started, by the way, but it took me a little while to find my water legs or whatever they say.
Yeah. Where are you originally from?
Born in Dallas. I'm a Texas guy, and then I moved to Austin when I was 5. Out to Bastrop originally when I was 15. Okay. Been back and forth out there. I have 2 grown kids, and they were both raised out in Bastrop County.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Small town, I would assume, or at least it was. I'm not. How is it now? Is it growing?
By comparison, it's really growing a lot, man. Okay. A few years ago, I heard people start affectionately calling it East Austin, and I was like, I kind of like that. That's pretty neat, man, because you kind of have that goofy hippy dippy crowd moving out there. Prices are moderately cheaper. Not what they were great when I first moved out there.
Sure, yeah.
Back out there.
Yeah.
11 years ago. But yeah, it's been a while since the prices have been that great.
The secret is out. Bastrop is
it is not a secret, man.
Well, yeah, I know. You got a few, I guess, like production campuses or companies moving out there.
Movie stuff. Yeah. Almost all of Elon's stuff has moved out to the county. Okay. It ain't no secret, man.
Growing up in Dallas, what did your parents do for work?
You know what? I was only born there, and I didn't live there for long.
Oh, okay.
My parents divorced pretty early on. I don't remember that. And my mom was like pretty much a lifelong secretary. I hate to say it like that, but just like, I just don't know if there's a modern day way of saying that.
Yeah, I don't think there is. The secretary's cool, I guess.
Yeah, it was a vital part of, whatever operation she was in. Yeah. But she worked for dealerships and lawyers and pharmaceutical companies and the Austin Chronicle at one point. I don't know what her status was there. This was in the early 80s when she worked there. So different times.
And Dad?
Yeah, well, he did a few things. He was like a radio DJ before my time, a little bit. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Maybe a small town radio DJ. But he ended up working for the government. I hate to say that I don't really know. Something to do. So he died in a single person airplane crash in '89 when I was 13.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time, but
sure.
But I think he had something to do with like FDIC, went to banks closures, savings and loan crisis back in the 80s, if you were aware of that. Something to do with that. And he'd gone on a singles cruise. He was newly divorced from his third wife, and came back and rushed out to fly when he shouldn't have. Weather wasn't great, and he crashed.
Yeah. Well. Okay.
Yeah, it's a drag. Yeah, I'm sorry. So
no, it's fine. No, I the reason why I ask these questions about where I want to establish where you come from. If you come from an entrepreneurial background, because you are a gym owner. Before you became a gym owner, what did you do for to earn a living?
Nerd, web developer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and musician. Again, I've been a musician the whole time.
We're getting to that.
We're building that's been the lifelong thing, and that is in there. And I was doing that the whole time. But a web developer for myself, and then at the end for a company that did like a hearing aid audiologist, ear, nose, and throat doctor websites. So it was a very specific niche.
I find that fascinating. We all need a website, especially as business owners. So that's definitely interesting.
Yep.
Now, when did you find that itch to become a musician? Like when did you first notice? Like, hey, I need to pick up something to strike a tune, strike a chord.
Yeah, forever, really. I mean, I don't think I tried playing stuff like violin, viola, guitar as a very young child, and I was just too much of an ADHD type of kid. And people that know me well still call that out in me, but they're right. I do have it more sometimes than others. But when I was 11, I joined the orchestra. Actually, I wanted to join the band, and I wanted to play saxophone, and I tried out, and they're like, here's a stringed instrument. I was like, all right, I guess I wasn't cut out for that. So that's right. I loved it, and I really did enjoy it. I didn't care. I actually do like classical music. I don't seek it out as much as I did then, but it's great. I can appreciate all the little nuances. I feel like as a musician, I can hear what's happening more than the average bear does anyway.
Yeah.
And so I learned how to read viola music, violin music as a kid. I moved out to Bastrop. They didn't have it, so I put it down. And at around 15 years old, I picked up the guitar and went from there.
What was it about the guitar? You just wanted to
rock and roll. Pussy, I don't know. Yeah,
was there a girl in mind that you're trying to impress? It almost never helped me get
laid, especially back then. It didn't. No, it didn't work.
I mean, you can only go so far playing G and C chords. You know, it's really a thing that girls aren't responding to when you can only play 3 chords. They have to already think you're pretty swell if that's going to impress them, I think. What were some of your musical influences growing up?
Man, some really eclectic stuff, but some of the more usual stuff is I was really influenced by guitar. I was influenced by the Black Crowes, Steve Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, stuff like that. I'm a blues guy. I try to lean a little bit more to a jazzier side as I get older, but heavily on that. But man, I listen to a lot of folk, a lot of stuff that a lot of people haven't heard of. There's a guy that was an Austinite, and he was killed also in '89. I think. Anyway, his name was Blaze Foley. And do you know the name?
I don't.
Man, look it up. In fact, there's a great movie. Ethan Hawke made it, and you see the back of his head in it. It's called Blaze. Okay. It's about his life. It's a really well done movie. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'll be sure to check that out.
Blaze. Yeah, and there was a documentary too a few years before that. And my mom and I knew him at the end of his life, and his music was pretty powerful to me then. Yeah. But especially having known him, I always kept up with that. I do one of his songs. If you go check out any of my music, there's a song that I perform called If I Could Only Fly. Okay. It's a Blaze Foley song. Willie Nelson did it. Another country guy named Merle Haggard did it. While he was alive, they did it.
Oh, wow. All right.
But he was kind of a couch surfing homeless guy in his life. He was a mess. But it's a great movie. Go watch it. You'll learn all about him, and it's a lot of fun.
So, I mean, there's 2 stories that you have right here that I'm trying to intertwine.
This is the ADHD
and this is this is where I do my job as a videographer. I'm always trying to interweave stories just to maximize the exposure time, but also keep the viewer engaged. And I love where this is going. So back up on me. When you started your website designing, did the thought of starting a gym when did that come into your head?
Absolutely separate ideas, but I've used the web stuff for myself. I am my own web.
I would imagine,
builder and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess if I'll maybe back up and just answer that question separately. When did I start? I started training jiu-jitsu under a guy named Mario Esfihá, and he is a Brazilian guy that lives in North Austin. He's still there, and I was under him through my black belt, almost through my first degree of my black belt for a little over 10 years. And but I bought some mats around purple belt, and I put them in my garage. And about a year in, I'd used them twice. I just didn't have many people come over. I always just went to the gym to train, Yeah. And I told Mario on the phone one day, he's like, I think I'm going to sell them. I can't use my garage. And he's like, no, man, hold on to them. I can see you needing this someday. I think I can see you owning a gym someday. I'm like, that's pretty cool that the guy that I look up to in jiu-jitsu sees that in me. Yeah. So I held on to him. I don't remember if I pulled him up right away or what, but I held on to him. And then when I moved back out to Bastrop in 2014, I just wanted to train. I was not looking to open a gym. I had a full-time web development job. Yeah. And so I went and I found some of the local martial arts schools there, none of which were jiu-jitsu. And I asked if we could somehow work out a deal. I share the space and they take the money, or I pay them rent and I take the money, or a mixture of both.
Right. Work out some deal.
They wouldn't even look me in the eyes, man. It was like they wouldn't return a phone call, an email, nothing. I had one lady say, that sounds good. And then instantly within minutes send me an email back saying, actually, I've thought about it. Never mind.
Why?
So, her reasoning was she didn't want me getting into her lane of teaching kids. And I actively told everybody, I want to develop adults to train with out there. So I want to develop an adult jiu-jitsu program out here. Yeah. And so it didn't work out. So I found my own tiny little spot for $800 a month. And I started a kids program along with my adult program, because that's bread and butter of martial arts. Everybody knows. Yeah. And man, absolutely none of those gyms that were there 10 and a half years ago when I started are still there. We have other ones,
Sure.
but all 100% of those have gone now.
Why?
They're just not. And now we have 2 other jiu-jitsu schools out there because jiu-jitsu is the coolest, is the most hippest one.
Okay.
Really, I mean, it's just like,
sure, yeah.
it's the one that's most popular right now. And over those years, we've added on kickboxing and judo. I have a black belt in judo too, so we throw that in there. Muay Thai is kickboxing, just straight up boxing. Some women's only class. I mean, we really have I've got a good handful of black belts now. We spread it out and we offer a lot more nowadays.
Now, when you were first starting up the gym, where did you get the capital from? Did you, from your own pocket? Did
From
you
my
go?
own pocket.
Okay. And you had been saving from the web development job.
Yeah,
Is that
but
correct?
it was so low overhead.
Okay.
I already had mats.
Yeah.
So I scrounged that together. And when I first started that, I needed a few more mats, and I went to Craigslist, and I found somebody. There was a show on, maybe it was an NBC show. Oh man, I wish I could remember the name, but it was about a show where society, the electrical grid shut down, and they were just kind of like surviving, like a post-apocalyptic type of thing in our infrastructure, but without the infrastructure,
Yeah.
And it lasted a few years. Around that time, the show was canceled, and the stuntmen, where they choreographed all their stuff in a warehouse in South Austin, were looking to sell their mats. So I went and got those for a song. I mean, it really was like almost nothing. And so I filled that out. So, I mean, I spent maybe a couple grand getting this thing open. My rent was next to nothing.
Right.
Yeah. It was great. Really
especially
easy.
out there. Yeah. And you don't have the other gym owners that I've, talked to, they obviously have equipment costs, and your only equipment cost is the mats, right?
Really low overhead. I've added more equipment over the years. But at the time, that was it.
But that was the main, that's all you needed to establish a gym. Now, as far as did you hire other coaches to come in and train, or was it just you doing the teaching and then
just
instructing?
me. At the beginning, just me. And pretty quickly I'd have other higher belts come in who would be interested in helping out. And I would just work out a deal with them and no payment.
Sure.
They wouldn't pay me, or their families wouldn't pay to train. They would just teach a couple classes.
Okay.
But for the first, I don't know, I'm going to make up a number, 5, 6, 7 years.
Okay.
I taught 90 to 100% of the classes.
And were you still doing the web development job as well? So that
No, I within about 6 or 9 months of starting the jiu-jitsu school, I asked that job if I could go part-time. It was taking off better than I expected. And they were like, hey, yeah, sure, we'll work with you. And then by the end of the week, they said, by the way, we don't need you anymore. So, all right, that was cool. It would have been nice if they would have just been straight with me, but that's how corporate America works.
That is very much so how corporate America works. Yep. I remember leaving my full-time job it had got to a point where we're not doing anything more creative. What once was is now completely different. We were doing a lot of creative stuff, creating podcasts, creating a live show, and then just the business had a different concept of what they thought was fun and was going to be beneficial to the entirety of the company, and it sucked. I'm like, all right, well, I'll just leave now. And it sucks when I understand that they have their own business to run, but just be straightforward with your employees, and I don't know, don't dick them around. But it is what it is.
They take the human element out of it a little bit. They don't really consider that too much.
Yeah. So all the while you're doing this, how old are your kids?
Now, I'll tell you, my daughter turns 21 in a couple months.
Okay.
And my son is 23 and a half. And
Got
he's
it.
a jiu-jitsu killer too.
Oh,
I'll
awesome.
talk about him too, yeah. Mhm.
Did the thought of, man, the business is making money, but also I still have to provide for a family. Did that cross your head? Did that provide any stress, anxiety?
Always. And I suspect that every entrepreneur has that. I feel like it's kind of a hallmark of entrepreneurship. It's that the bottom can fall out at any time, that feeling.
Anytime.
Yep. I'll say, though, I do have another judo instructor at my gym. He actually outranks me. He's a 3rd degree. I'll say that he's already found another job, but he works for the man, in air quotes. And he showed up to a class that he doesn't usually do a few weeks ago. I'm like, hey, what's up, Pat? What are you doing here? And he's like, I got shit canned, kind of, they let me go, I think. And, oh no, oh my gosh. He's like, it's all right. I'll find, I'm pretty in high demand. He's like a high level IT guy.
Okay.
And by the next week, he'd already been hired by somebody else. But having that happen is like, man, he works for somebody and it can happen that same way.
Yeah.
So it kind of made me feel a little bit more at peace with just because I'm an entrepreneur doesn't mean that it only happens to me. Anybody can experience this insecurity.
What did you do to kind of save yourself from that anxiety? Did you work more? Did you make sure like your books were aligned? Like you're just keeping busy so that way you didn't have that thought come in your head?
I like the idea of leaving no stone unturned. I kind of have some mantras that I say in my head sometimes, and that's one of them. I remember getting ready to compete in Worlds for the first time at Purple Belt, and I wanted that feeling of like, okay, and I didn't win. I got second place, and I mean the guy who won first place was a stud. He just was a better grappler than me, and it was, honest to goodness, my gas tank was amazing. I could have gone more rounds after that. It was 5 rounds. I won 4 to get to the finals, and then lost that one by, the guy just out-grappled me. But I wanted that. I still feel proud of that because it wasn't that, oh, man, my gas tank just gave out or my technique. I could have done something more. I didn't, man. I trained so hard, and I dropped weight to a lower weight class. I did everything I could, and I felt proud of my performance because it wasn't based on that. So if I have a time in my career of jiu-jitsu ownership where I feel like things are waning a little bit, I just go back into that. Okay, am I doing everything I can do? And I do sometimes back off and kind of coast. And those are the times when I don't know. I don't mind. It's good to relax a little bit, but I'm in the not coasting period right now. I've got more and more competition moving out to my area. And I just want to make sure that I stay on top.
Now, let's go back to when you were 16 and playing the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the first concert you played? Like real concert where there was an audience?
Like played. I mean, I remember some of the first. I don't know if it was the first. I remember the first one I got paid for.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
All right, and it's so silly, but I guess most people's are this, that I played with this bass player was a guard out of the federal prison in Bastrop County. And we played for the families, the guards and their families at a Christmas thing. And I made $12. And that was my first professional gig. Yeah, man.
And I bet you felt like $1 million. Felt like $1 million bucks, right?
I was not good at all. I mean, it was, and I knew at the time I wasn't amazing, but I just enjoyed it. And people around me didn't seem to care. So it was all right. Yeah.
So once you got that feeling, did you have a plan to kind of grow your musical career, or is just, we'll play what we can?
That was it. I never had any kind of direction with it. And it showed. Nothing really. It's still I'm struggling. I'm growing a pretty decent, for a nobody, I'm growing a pretty decent like Spotify, authentic Spotify listenership. You know what I mean? Around 150,000 listens last year.
Right on.
And that's because I've really been pushing in the right direction. It's the first time I've given it that direction. As a business owner, I have that you've got to spend money to make money thing in my head a lot. And so that's what I do. I spend money to get it in front of the right people, and then I let it ride that.
Sure.
And so it's been maybe half a year since I've spent any money on it, and I continually have thousands of listens every month because I did the right stuff in the beginning.
Now, I'm not familiar with the Spotify analytics, but what are you looking for? It seems like you're very, you can analyze some data and then put in a game plan. Is that correct? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of let professionals handle that part of it in the beginning. But I have to stay on top of what the tools that Spotify gives you. I have to kind of stay on top of that and make sure I'm pushing the right songs. And
so what are the tools that Spotify gives you?
Just some self-promoting campaign tools. I mean, they've got it. There's a couple that are maybe one that is released and one that's in beta. And actually, I think I like the one that's in beta better. And they just make sure that it stays a part of their algorithm. If you keep an eye on it and you kind of keep making sure that they're boosting the right songs, it kind of keeps that going. Any artist on Spotify knows, but it's kind of hard to get into that bracket. You have to have X amount of listens for them to even notice you enough to offer that to you.
And on top of that, I think you're forgetting that it has to be good music.
Well, it doesn't hurt to be good music, and I noticed the couple songs that I feel like are most, I don't know, some of my songs a little bit esoteric, a little bit it's not everybody's cup of tea, but the ones, it's like the one that gets the most hits right now is just a fast blues song, and it's maybe not the one that I'm most proud of. It's kind of plain Jane as far as like it's just another blues song, but it's a blues song and people dig that. People of a certain age and blah blah blah, that's what they seek out. Now, it's good for what it is. I'm proud of it for that reason.
After playing the prison show, when did you really start to take the music career and the music thing seriously? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I can't point to any one time, but I know, like when I started playing bass for other people, that's when I noticed more and more opportunities. I got like the only South by Southwest show I've ever played, an official one, was for this lady named Denisha Odigi, and she was a Nashville artist, and we had some mutual friends, and they were looking for somebody for a group here, and my name was thrown out to be the bassist, and I did, and it was a fun show, and she came back to town a few more times, and I played with her every time. And that led to more and more things, and touring around Texas and stuff like that. You know,
You toured around Texas?
well, yeah, a little bit.
Okay. What was your favorite town to visit or area?
I don't know that I prefer Austin, to be honest, but
Austin's not a bad place.
yeah, especially at the time, 15 to 20 years ago, when I was most serious about that part of it, playing out with other people. But I like college towns, like San Angelo was kind of a fun one. I thought,
man,
yeah, it was just a different crowd.
Yep.
Yeah.
Growing up in that area, my parents lived in Midland, Texas for quite some time, so I had to drive through that area. And it's not the most, I don't know, it's not the most exciting town, but I feel like when anything that comes into that town, people are going to be excited about because it's something new.
The drag about Austin is that it's hard to get people excited. They've seen it all. And it's not just a now thing. It's been the whole time I've been here.
Yeah.
You got to be cool.
Yeah, that is I tend to kind of live in that area of like, oh man, another band's coming to town, great. When I should be more like, oh my God, they're coming to town, let's go lucky. Fucking see them. Yeah. So now I'm like, even if I have to force myself to go out, I do it, and then at the end of the night, I'm like, man, I'm so glad I went out. I just went to Continental Club, saw a great musical act, and it's always beneficial. And it sucks as you get older, the less and less you want to go out, so the more and more you have to force yourself to do it. And meeting all the musicians, including you, it's like, all right, let me go out and experience what these individuals are playing and what they're talking about, and I don't know, be part of the community. When did you when did you notice Austin? Did you ever notice that Austin was changing before 2020?
Yeah, constantly.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
What was it about Austin that you noticed it just wasn't the same?
Moving here at such a young age and such an early, I mean, for me, for my lifespan in 81, and it's just, I remember vaguely because I was so young, but I remember the kind of small town feel, and even kind of lamented back then, like there was nothing to do in town. I remember kind of being a little bit jealous of Dallas, and San Antonio had SeaWorld, and Dallas had Six Flags, and Austin didn't have shite. It was for a kid. It was dead
for a kid. Okay. Yeah.
But but the music is, I would say, a lot more accessible back then. Seeing how the price of everything shooting up is probably and I hate to say it, I'm really not negative Nancy about any of this stuff. I'm glad that ACL is a thing. I've never been once, and it's not. I don't have any kind of protest against it. It's just so highly priced.
It is. Yep.
And it's not accessible to those that make the music. Mm-hmm. Not really. I mean, of course they can make it happen, but those people are struggling to reside in this town that makes its name off the backs of the musicians that drive it. I'm not a fan of that.
I think that, again, I don't know if this is dealing with age or to your point that it's just not becoming more accessible. There's a lot of good talent in this town. And I know a few artists that go and play, with musicians that come into town at ACL specifically that, need to hire a guitarist or bassist. And so it's cool to see those individuals up on stage. But the only real band that I wanted to see last year was Rickshaw Billy's Burger Patrol. And they're my favorite band in Austin. And when me and my wife saw that they were on the lineup, we're like, we have to go to this show. And we only bought a 1-day pass. And even that was like, I think it was like, all in with the fees, it was like $300 for me and my wife for a 1-day pass. I'm like, thank God we have the money that we can, afford this shit. But I don't know. This seems a little ridiculous and a little high and a little too corporate. But who knows what's going to come next year? Hopefully things change, but maybe they don't. Either way, I'm not going to worry about it.
I don't see any reason why they are going to change. The prices keep going up, and South by Southwest used to be that way. I've got a newspaper article. A video, I'm sorry, I can't talk, an image that I saw on Facebook, or I don't know, I've had it a long time, but somebody posted it and I grabbed it, and it showed in 89, I think it was the first South by Southwest, and it was $10 for a ticket across both weekends. And I just, man, it's so magical.
That's wild.
I know, and $10 was closer to, I don't know, $60 back then.
Right.
It's still way different than what they're asking for that same ticket now. They offer a lot, and I know as an artist who's played that by South by Southwest, artists don't get paid for that.
No.
And that's a drag, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money going into the pocket of people that aren't making the art.
Yeah, one of the musicians that came in not too long, I think it was yesterday. They said, when we were an official South by Southwest artist, we just wanted the parking pass. We didn't need the money. We're just like, we want the most convenient way to get to our venue.
Yeah.
So that way we don't have to stress about that. And I thought, yeah, that's kind of cool. And that's a way to think about it. But for the amount of money that South by Southwest makes, I think they can give into giving the artist a little bit more. Because it's pretty insane what they're giving artists these days, and it's not much. Especially if you're a 4-piece, 5-piece band, like it just gets that profit margin gets slimmer and slimmer.
I was lucky to live here, but the gal that I played with, she didn't. The people that fly in from Japan or Netherlands or whatever, are they gonna pay for all that? Your pay is a thing on your. I don't know. Okay.
Do you remember Fun Fest?
I do.
Oh, that was my favorite festival. My brother-in-law would come down and we go see all these crazy bands, and it was a fun time.
Was it how fun though? Was it fun?
It was triple fun. Although I remember, God, what's his name? The lead singer to Danzig, Glenn, obviously.
Yeah.
Duh. He's being a little bitch about how cold it was, and they were trying to put heaters up on stage to accommodate for how cold he was. And by the time they got it up and roaring, we only saw a little bit of Danzig, and the band that we really wanted to see was the Misfits. And of course they played one song and that was it. They hit the Sydney sound ordinance that they couldn't play past a certain time. We're like, well, that fucking sucks. And then of course on Twitter, everybody just, were shitting on him, and it wasn't fun, but,
sounds like a drag.
Yeah. And there's a thing that happened, the pandemic. And so
I'm sorry, the what now?
the pandemic was a thing.
Doesn't
you missed
ring a
it?
bell. I missed it. Sorry.
Now, as an entrepreneur and as a musician, how did that affect you?
I wasn't as into playing music live at the time.
Okay.
I was still focusing more and more on the gym.
Yeah.
It affected the gym tremendously. I went from maybe I lost about half of my student base. And we had to shut down for like everybody did.
Yeah.
We were in Texas, so the shutdown didn't last as long as it did in
other places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like in my town, we had a mask ordinance, and I abided. I don't want to get political on here. I don't know if you get political.
You can if you want.
I just abided. That's all. And I lost some friendships over some people that took a hard line of like, no, I'm not doing a mask. And like,
yeah,
I'm just trying to keep my doors open. And I had conversations like, I don't really care. I'm not particularly worried about this. If you want to have it off around me while we roll or whatever, I don't care. But I know that person, it's the little bit, it's even if it's realistic or not, it's what makes them feel comfortable enough to come in. Would you do it around them? And, a few folks took a hard line and said, no, I can't in good conscience do it. Well, I got to do this to keep my doors open.
Right.
I remember one time a cop walked in while we were rolling and the half masks were off. And my heart just sank. And,
oh shit!
I know. And he in the uniform, and he had found a wallet that's outside. That was it. He's like, "Is this anybody's wallet?" And I realized that they didn't really care.
They have other shit to worry about.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. And nobody. It definitely got politicized, and I think the cops did enforce it. I didn't know that until towards the end, and then it went away, and no big deal.
That was a very weird time. We were arguing about who needs to mask up and who doesn't, and I hope we never do that again. That wasn't fun.
Not fun. Yeah.
But you managed to survive.
And then some. I got some PPP loans to help me get through it. That helped, or a PPP loan.
Yeah.
And then in my local, in the city government, the Economic Development Corporation, they did a few smaller little. I think I got maybe 2 different smaller little, not loans, but just here's a grant to help keep your doors open. It all helped.
Do you know the landlord of your gym?
I do. It's different than it was in the pandemic.
Okay.
But,
Were you talking to them like, hey, this is the situation? What were they like?
That was another thing. And this is a woman, and I don't know her name, so I definitely won't say it. I wouldn't even anyway if I did, but I forget what it is. But she was a hard ass. She really I had to fight her on a few things, and luckily I won usually.
Okay.
About like air conditioning repairs and stuff like that, and it was stuff I'd had written into the contract that they tried to reword. Anyway, but I won the couple times that I had to. But with her, I was expecting a fight. I was a little bit on the phone, like with my hands up, and she's like, no. I mean, we're all in this together, and I felt lucky because I know a lot of people weren't like that.
Okay.
And so she did. She had some rent abatement for a little while. I don't remember now what it was. Maybe as much as no rent for a month. The months that I think maybe something like we didn't have to pay any rent the months we were shut down. And then we did little by little. But I was real faithful with my I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. As I could pay the full thing, I told her, hey, my numbers are looking better.
Yeah.
I can pay the full amount now.
Right.
So I think maybe all in all, I had about 4 months of maybe 1 month of no rent and maybe 3 months of partial rent. And I think I even grew that partial rent over that time to get back. I don't think it extended my lease at all. It might have. I can't remember now.
Yeah. How many other gyms were operational at that time in your area?
Zero.
During
the pandemic, the first one came out, a Gracie Baja gym came out right smack dab. I mean, in the shutdown, they announced their opening, and I was really confused by that, but whatever. They're still there. I mean, they moved out of their original location because they bit off more than they could chew, but they still exist and still putting out competitors.
So the PPP loans, the how friendly your landlord was, and understanding the situation. What else do you think attributed to you just surviving that time period?
The community. I feel like the crowd of people. I've got people that, I mean, not a lot. The turnover's high in my industry, but I've got a good handful of people that have been with me, and the people that were there at the beginning and during the pandemic stuck it out. A lot of them, especially the core group. I said I lost half. But man, I lose half my people anyway, and every year I just replace them, and I lost them all very quickly, and they couldn't get replaced in that time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it just slowly kept growing back, and people were getting more and more fed up with being stuck in their house and whatnot, and so they came out taking chances, and we never had any kind of big epidemic at the gym or whatever. Yeah.
When it comes to being a gym owner and in jiu-jitsu, there seems to be, you have to have a work ethic, right?
Sure. Like arriving early to places, right, Ramon?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Does that work ethic seep into the way you train yourself as a musician?
Absolutely.
How?
I practice more than I used to.
Okay.
That's it. I used to just kind of rely on whatever God gave me or whatever. And now, and I was always kind of half-assed. I mean, I know a lot of musicians that play me under a table still, even though I practice so much. I'm also a little bit long in the tooth, and probably I should have done my practicing more back 25, 30 years ago.
But it's never too late.
It's not. No, it's not. It's really not. And I feel 30. I feel younger than you are, even though I'm older than you are. It's just like my knee hurts right now, but other than that, I feel pretty young.
Well, when you're constantly grappling and just like, beating your body up day in and day out, I'm pretty sure some things are going to be sore.
I competed a lot for a long time, and so it definitely it's taken its toll on me. But yeah, I think it affected the way I parented. It affects the way I clean my house. I mean, really, it affects everything. I'm more on top of shit because of what jiu-jitsu's brought to me. By the way, my own little side story, I'll make this short.
No,
I had a bat.
This is a long format.
Is it cool?
Yeah,
I don't know how long we're
podcast.
Here.
Yeah,
of course.
Go ahead.
I had a bad acid trip when I was in my early 20s. The last time I ever tried that, and it changed me for over a decade. And I really feel like what brought me out of that was jiu-jitsu, and it made me complete again. And I didn't realize it was happening at the time. But looking back, I realized how much that did for me. Bringing jiu-jitsu back into my life gave me back some sense of self and worth and blah, blah, blah.
Going back to the acid trip, was it too much or?
I don't know, man. I did it with another guy.
Was it the first time that you did it?
A bandmate. No, in the first. No, I'd had some good experience. I didn't do it a bunch. It was maybe my fourth or fifth time, but I did it with a bandmate, and he also had the exact same experience. He found God after that. Still has. Still. I mean, it really went deep into his spirituality and stuff, and it made me anxious and gave me panic attacks for a few years, and it was not fun. So I stayed away from it after that.
Yeah, when I did shrooms,
hallucinogenic. Yeah,
I did it one time in college, and to your kind of the same thing. I had such a bad time doing it.
Yeah.
But on the other side of when I came out of it, during it, I was just stuck in a loop, and coming from a Catholic background, being stuck in that loop just put me into a place of what I called purgatory. I'm like, this is it. Ramon, you died. You are fucking dead. This is your suffering now, and you're going to be here for quite some time. And then the idea of purgatory is you're in there until, I don't know, your soul gets cleansed, and then you go move on. I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to die. And then eventually my buds came into my room and they're like, hey, you're fine. Here, calm down. We'll just chill in this room with you. And then the next day I woke up and I was really thankful that I wasn't dead. And since that day, I've never touched mushrooms ever again. And I don't think I ever want to, because I feel like in those types of drugs, you have to be in the right frame of mind. And while I do consider myself in the right frame of mind, it's just there's so many worries that I have, more so for the business. It's like I don't even want to dive into those demons just yet. But
right, let me do a little bit of bite off a little bit of time. I feel like instead of all at once.
When it comes to finding creativity for your music, where do you draw that inspiration from?
Man, thank you for asking that. Lots of different places, and really, I get inspired by other artists that I like. So, not to be self-deprecating, but it's the God's honest truth. I feel like a lot of my stuff is purposefully kind of derivative of stuff that I like, but I try to not to make it too derivative of that one artist or whatever. Right. But I try to pull inspiration from the many things that I like in a lot of songs. And also I just have things that I want to accomplish in songwriting. So for example, I wanted to write a song where the verse and the chorus were the same form. I don't know if you know what I mean.
No.
Okay. So do you play music at all?
I could play the G's. I could play the
right.
C's.
So
I
you
can play
have some
the
understanding. Okay, so it's like you have a regular song. I'm trying to think of just any old song. Of course, I'm drawing a blank right now, but it's usually the verse is and the chorus is whatever. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I wanted to write a song where the music behind the singing stayed the same form. And so I'll give you an example. It's R&B stuff that I grew up liking. Bill Withers. Do you know?
A Texas guy, right?
Lean on Me. I don't think it was Texas.
Oh shit! Never mind then. I don't know.
If you're right, I could be wrong. I forget now. Bill, but he did Lean on Me and Ain't No Sunshine when she's gone.
Yeah, he's definitely not from Texas.
But like that song, Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. It's the same chords behind the verse and the chorus. He just sings it differently. Anyway, that's just one example of I wanted to accomplish that. I wanted to accomplish a song where I have some horns, which I've been doing more horns in my recordings lately. I wanted to have a song where I do some a cappella, just like it starts or stops or somewhere in there, there's just the vocals carrying the thing out. And I've done that with a song of mine called Big Talker. So I try to, there are things like, I want to do that. I want to accomplish this. What's the best way I can do that? So that's what I've tried to use as far as musical inspiration. As far as what I write about, man, it's just whatever. Like that song, Big Talker, it's based on being it's partially based on being a martial artist. And if I wear my shirt out, especially, or I live in a small town, so people kind of know who I am a little bit more out there. I'm kind of famous. I'm kind of a big deal is all I'm saying. And Bastrop. And so it's like they come up and they make karate hands at me, and they either want to talk about their sword martial art they made up in Vietnam, and they want to you want to come to my garage? No, I really don't.
Wow. I
really, really don't. Or what happens more, it's like the people who kind of pseudo playfully challenge me. And I don't, this makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to partake in this because you've got that striker's chance of, I mean, if this were really something that were going to happen, you've got a striker's chance of knocking me out. I've taken some hard blows, usually accidental in jiu-jitsu, man, and I keep going. Yeah. But I don't know, man. I don't get boxed a bunch. So maybe you could knock me out. But if you don't, man, I'm really good at the ground stuff, and you're going to have a hard time at that. And I don't want to say any of that stuff to people. It's so cocky and shitty, and I don't want to be that guy. So I usually you look pretty tough. You're probably right. Yeah. That's how I mean, it's like, the good chance you could, man. Can I buy you a beer? That's how I try to handle stuff like that. I don't know. Anyway, so that was an inspiration behind one song.
Okay.
So I keep going off on tangents.
No, I love the tangents.
Love Life also is another one.
It seems like when I walk around with my camera at shows, people want to talk to me about camera stuff, and that's the last thing I want to do right now. I'm so worried about the show, and I don't know. It's interesting the way people approach you in certain situations about what you have on.
I feel like the more equivalent though would be if people walked up to you and just kind of regularly told you why their camera's better than your camera.
Yeah.
Like,
Thankfully,
okay, maybe.
you know, I think that is very interesting. No one has ever talked to me like that because I think most of the people who are using cameras are introverted. So they're not looking to approach me.
They thought it all. They just didn't say it.
But every once in a while, I'll get a uncle at a wedding, and he wants to talk about cameras. I'm like, I will. Maybe we can talk about this some other time. But right now, I'm here to work. So, what with Bastrop being such a small community, do you feel like there's potential for? Is there a music scene growing in
There
that?
is.
Okay,
Hey,
good.
Man, I'm
All
glad
right.
you're asking about this stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got
because
stuff to say about it.
I feel like the hub is Austin. Granted, this used to be the musical capital of the world. I think we're getting back to where we want to be, but that I think we forget that there's other cool surrounding towns, and Bastrop is one of them.
Well, I also want to say I've also toured in France quite a bit,
Okay.
and they don't know. They've never heard that live music capital of the world.
Oh,
That's not, and like even Nashville has probably
well,
got way
it's
more
a
music.
saying that I'm believing
No,
in,
it's
Alex.
great. No, it's been there the whole time. But even Keep Austin Weird was originally Keep Portland Weird, and we just absconded that. I
You know
think.
what? Fuck Portland.
I know.
This is my show.
I
Hey,
agree. I'm sorry.
I
I'm just
make
saying.
up the
Okay,
news.
all right, sorry.
I'm the fact maker.
Fake news. Everybody says. All right. Yeah, but so Bastrop does, man. And again, having been out there for so long, I've played music out there for decades, but it was always pretty slow and an open mic here, or I played bass with a blues guy that we played out there in the early 2000s maybe. And but there was like that one place, and you play music there every once in a while. Now we've got a handful of venues that are playing music every weekend, and I've got a friend who's playing tomorrow night, Thursday night in Bastrop, and there's going to be music Friday and Saturday. I had a friend who just played on Sunday at the same venue, so I know at least they have music some Sundays. So instead of there being music one weekend a month, there's music at 5 different places, 3 or 4 nights a week. It's pretty amazing what it's come to.
And that wasn't always the case with Bastrop.
No, absolutely not. The drag about Bastrop is there's not one indoor venue, and this is something I feel strongly about. So I sit on the board of a destination marketing organization out there called Visit Bastrop. Every city's got one.
Yeah.
Most cities have that, right?
Yeah.
And so we put on the Bastrop Music Festival. It's happened for 7 years.
What the hell?
That's what I'm saying.
Never heard about it until now.
I know, and this is so. I tell you, I won't get too deep into it, but the board right now is we're having some feelings. I don't think any of this is secret. There's a good chance we're going to postpone and move it back to the spring, which is where it was pre-COVID, instead of September, which is where it's been since.
Ooh. Especially, if you're doing outside stuff in September.
It was pretty good this week. I mean, it's been pretty. It's the last weekend of September is when it was. It was pretty nice. Really, it was pretty great this last
But
weekend.
it's always
It's
always a gamble, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, every outdoor thing's kind of a gamble.
Yeah.
For the most part. And
True.
in Texas, the heat you could hit that 100-degree weather in March. I think it's happened. It
has. Yeah.
Not often, but it happens. But I think we're probably going to try to organize it differently, because what I've been told, I'm pretty new to this organization, but what I've been told is that, like in Bastrop, we never heard much about it, but they were targeting outside of Bastrop, specifically Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. So for someone like you to say, what? I've never heard of it, is quite frustrating, because you should have seen about this.
Right, yeah.
As a music lover in a destination that we're targeting, you should have at least heard about it from a friend.
Yeah.
So look for that, because I think in the spring.
Okay, good. Are they
spring.
doing the social media thing? Are they doing the targeting that way? How are they targeting audiences?
That's what's probably going to change. It was targeted through print, which is something that face, exactly what you did. That's how many of us feel. And so that's the change we're going to make. Is it's going to be like, I think what the research we've done is that, almost all ticket sales nowadays are done through Facebook, but maybe Instagram, but it's the same thing. Meta.
Same. Yeah. The cell phone I see it now as a tool. It can be very deadly, or it can be very beneficial to anybody. I think it's cool to see friends and family and their kids and, the life stuff. But, you get inundated with, like, you go down rabbit holes with whatever political affiliation you're associated with, and it just feeds into an echo chamber. But I think to your point, the the festival needs to be broadcasted and sponsored through Instagram because that's how people are consuming things.
Yeah. No, I mean, it has an Instagram and a Facebook page, but that's not how it was being pushed out to people.
Print is, I think it has its places. Print has its places. I know with some of the real estate people that I work with, like that's their bread and butter. That's how they get, new inquiries and referrals and stuff like that. So I do believe it has its place, but for anything of entertainment value, I think it needs to be through the phone, through a website, through whatever. So that's interesting, and I can't wait to dive more into that and check it out.
So much of the new music I've found in the last 10 years has been through Facebook and Instagram. The stuff that's low key that I wouldn't have heard about any other way. It's not coming across the radio. I don't listen to radio really, but it's not coming across to me in any way other than in front of my music feed, my social media feed.
Sure.
I'm so glad that I have that.
Talk to me how you went on this tour in Paris. What was it for? Who was it with? What'd you do?
Yeah, and just not to be a stickler. It wasn't Paris. It was France.
Oh,
but
France.
It wasn't in Paris. That's all right. Yeah, it was actually a different part of France. And man, I used to have a job where I traveled for this company. They put on pharmaceutical meetings. They're a meeting management group, and they were specifically for pharmaceutical companies. So like Pfizer and blah, 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 people like that.
Okay.
And very specific industries like pain management and endocrinology. And so my first time I ever traveled abroad was in 2004, and I went to Switzerland, Geneva, Switzerland.
Oh, beautiful place.
It was great, man. It was magical. My head was still in the clouds the whole time. It was great. And while there, I met this French guy named Guillaume, but he goes by Yom.
Okay.
And one of my colleagues, she said, "Hey, you guys should talk. You both play music." And we're like, okay,
cool,
whatever. But we ended up hanging out one day and went to a music store, and we really hit it off. And then I got some time off, and he drove me just across the border into his little town in France, and I met some of his musician friends.
Okay.
It was so cool, man. The next year,
was there a language barrier there?
His English was bad, but better than my French.
Okay.
I speak a little French, but better now than I used to.
Yeah.
And it's not really good enough to carry on a meaningful conversation.
Okay.
I could get around in France now and make stuff happen, emergencies and all that, but I can't have any, like I said, it's all almost textbook French still.
Okay.
But his English is pretty good, and what he can't say, my brain works in a good way of like filling in the gaps with broken English. Anyway, it's the least I could do for someone who's trying to speak my language in their country. But yeah, so the next year, my then wife, my kid's mom, we went back and had a vacation, and he had met a woman at that time, and then we joked about trying to do a tour, and the joking turned serious. So the year after that, 2 years after I met him, I went. So in 2006, I went and did my first France tour there, and we spent about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was great, and I've done it. The coolest one was in 2010. I did a few more before and after, but it was in 2010 I played a blues festival out there, and man, it was great. Played in front of a few thousand people, and it was fantastic.
Now, as far as compensation wise, who takes better care of their musicians? France?
Yes.
Or
I don't even have to hear the rest of that.
Okay. Why? Why do you think?
They care more about the arts there. It's built into their culture.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They have a history of that. Okay, that makes sense.
They supplement their musicians. The musicians have to meet a certain criteria of how many professional gigs they have to play.
Right, okay.
But once they hit that, they have to give some of each of that gig money towards this government entity.
Oh.
But they also get, I'm going to make a number, but close to this, 1,000 euros a month.
Okay.
From this government entity. And so like during COVID, if you had met that the previous year, you're going to be okay.
Okay. What is the level of what is the standard for meeting that criteria? Like, is it just whatever? Do they have to report to a government office of music, which actually sounds kind of cool?
It's not bad. Yeah. I mean, cause it's not meant to keep you under their thumb. It's meant to help you and support you. I will make up some numbers. It's probably close to the truth, but it's probably not specific. But it has to be a certain level of gig, and by that I can't remember exactly what that criteria is. If it's a certain number of people or a certain type of venue, it has to make X amount of money, and you have to have maybe 45 of those a year, something like that. Okay. And each of those, so like if I mean it's a pretty significant chunk that they take out, but I get to keep that money, and they're still sending me monthly income too. And so it's you're not going to be making money hand over fist, but you can survive solely on music I have multiple musician friends over there that are exclusively musicians now,
Okay.
and don't make their money any other way, and raise families.
Yeah. What?
Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
And they raise families doing this. Yeah, like my friend Yom, he and his then wife, they're both full-time musicians, and they have a son and dog and a house and blah blah. They separated since then, but they still play music together.
Okay. Wow, that's very nice of them.
Yeah.
Cordial. I find that so fascinating because that's not the way it is here in America. And I don't know how I feel about that. Like I'm kind of like I'm distraught that they're doing it better than America, and I don't like that.
Well, I mean, I feel like the other side's going to say they're taking so much of your money. I mean, I don't want to get political. I really don't, but you could equate it to universal health care or something. It's like
that's another thing.
They pay a much higher tax rate. Let's just say the French. They pay a much higher tax rate than we do.
Sure.
Significantly higher. But all that's taken care of.
Yeah.
All of it. And so I don't know. It's I'm not even giving my opinion. I mean, maybe you could guess my opinion, but it's not. I'm not even saying I know that I'm right. It's just, yes, you pay a lot more, but so much more is taken off of your shoulders. Like, for example, I don't know if what they pay in taxes equals what I pay for my own health insurance. I pay for my own health insurance. I have to, doing what I do. And
right.
I mean, even if I didn't, I'd like to think I would. But
yeah.
So that costs a lot, and I got to pay my taxes. I just don't know. It might wash out. I don't know.
Man, if I were a struggling musician here in Austin, I'd find a way to get to France and make a life over there, because it just seems like it's more beneficial over there. But then again, I'm sure there's nuances that we're not aware of, and yeah.
Specifically, one of my French friends told me, for example, they make entrepreneurship really, really difficult over there.
Okay, yeah. Well,
and all the details I don't know, but it's like once you have it, you're good.
Yeah.
But getting it going, they make it really, really difficult for somebody. Like if I were going to go open a gym there, which is what the topic was, it's a plan that I was trying to see if I could work out.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. It wasn't viable.
Okay.
Not even based on that, just like who would run it and blah, blah, where the money came from. So, but he's like, yeah, it's really tough, man. Opening something like that here, they don't make it easy. The government doesn't.
Interesting. Because here, at least in Texas, like I just have to pay for $300 for LLC, and boom, I'm a business owner.
It does not take much.
And in the video photo world, there's not a whole lot of regulation.
Also, in doing what I do, there's not, oddly enough, there's not a lot of
really.
regulation.
They sign a waiver form, right?
Which in Texas is a right to sue state, so it doesn't even really matter. They do sign that, but yeah.
So, are you trying to make any trips back with your current music catalog?
What?
Are you trying to make it back to France with your own band?
Maybe.
Or anywhere else across the pond?
I would love to play other places. That's the connection I have, is my friend Yom, and he's the one that's handled all this for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I did just go play over there in April of last year. Less than a year ago, I did another 2.5 weeks over there. It was the least exciting of the trips over there. The gigs were smaller, farther in between.
That sucks.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a weirder experience. I would want to make sure that it's all it can be to make it happen again.
For sure.
I've done where it's fed my ego to say that I play in France. That I've got. Now I can say I've done that. So that's not my reason for doing it. Now I want to go over there and actually introduce my music to people that will like it.
Feeding the ego is very important. I've been trying to work ACL for the longest time as a video photographer, and last year I got an invite to be like a PA, and it was like, I'm right there, but it fed the ego, and it was like, all right, this is it. That's
I'm
cool.
official.
That's it. Okay, well, let me go make some other real money. So I think feeding the ego is important, but when I try to feed the ego, I try to do it in silence. I'm not trying to brandish anything. It's more so about proving myself that I could have done it, and I haven't proven myself fully. But yeah, it's a weird thing to feed the ego, but I think it's necessary, right?
Absolutely.
Because then it puts you in check. Like, hey, you're really like, if you can't accomplish this, then you're not the shit anymore. Like,
and it doesn't really fulfill me unless it checks all these things off, and
right.
It usually doesn't check all this stuff off. Like playing with the right people, that's great, but at the right place, or I got the right gig, but the right people aren't available, or I'm playing in France, but it's just so many little things here, and it's like I want to stop spinning my wheels. I don't want to keep doing the same things just for the sake of doing them.
whether it be in owning a business or being a musician, what is something that you thought was going to like really boost your company or your musical career, but it just fell flat on its face?
Man, I have to say my plan has been so loosey-goosey with music. I don't have a great answer for that, for music related. I guess having stuff I can say, add to my resume that feeds the ego more than anything else, obviously, because it didn't help boost, but like having played official South by shows or having toured overseas so many times or whatever, having radio plays and fans in other countries. It's cool. Like for me, it's like, oh, that's neat. Somebody in Japan likes me or whatever. It gets me absolutely nothing here. Less than, it's not a factor. In jiu-jitsu, I had a billboard for a year and I thought that would do something. I thought it would do something more than it did. Right. It was so stupid expensive. And
was it like $10,000, right? Or even more?
For the month or for the year?
Oh my God.
No, God, no. No, it was $700 a month.
Okay. That's not,
it was still like 80 something, $8,000, $9,000 for the year. And man, I got like 20 verifiable leads from it. None of them signed up.
And what was the so they called you? How do you know that they came from that?
I lead track on my website. I funnel everybody to the website because everybody wants to know the rates.
Yeah.
And so I just don't put it there. You have to do a rates request form. It emails you right away.
Okay.
And I don't inundate people with a lot of spam or whatever. I'll check in on them once, maybe twice, maybe not. I probably could do more, but I just don't like high pressure sales. But that's it. When they check, how did you hear from me? I mean, like I said, that's why I said verifiable. Some people put other, maybe they just didn't do it, but I had like 19 or 21 or something like that people that put billboard for the entire year.
So you're not a big sales guy, right? It doesn't seem
it's not. No, it's not my history, and I like having this because it sells itself.
Sure.
Jiu-jitsu is, and I'm not to toot my own horn, but I'm good at it. I teach it well, and I'm charismatic, and I'm kind of funny, and people like that, and I've been there a while. Anyway, yeah. So,
but how do you, if you're not a good salesman? So obviously the product sells itself from the gym perspective, but when it comes to music, I feel like you kind of do have to sell yourself. And how do you go about doing that in a non-salesy way?
Man, I'm just not that good at it, to be honest. I mean, I hate to say that.
You fucking suck at it. All right, I get
really.
it.
I mean, like one of my bandmates, he told me recently, he's like, man, my only critique, and this was solicited, he didn't come out and he said it very nicely. My only critique is that you self-deprecate too much on the stage. I'm paraphrasing, but like, for example,
you're one of those people.
Well,
dude,
but it's legit reason. I'll tell you like what he's talking about. Like, last year I had vocal cord polyps removed. I had vocal cord surgery, and I had half my thyroid removed. I had this.
Oh my God!
Both of which could cause permanent nerve stuff. But luckily, I'm still healing.
Okay,
it's been 8 months. I'm still not 100%, but I'm better. I'm a lot better. I can perform now. Some of my things that I used to be able to do vocally, I can't right now, but I'm very slowly getting shit back. But I would make these, before that, I was having symptoms of vocal cord polyps flare up and my voice would go away. And I'd have these shows where I'm like, I'm so sorry, folks. My voice left me today and I'm going to try my best. So stuff like that. Or like, hey, I just had surgery and you might hear my voice break a little bit, but he just didn't. He's like, I wouldn't say that. Don't say it as much or at all even. People don't notice, generally speaking. I have a caveat to that.
Okay, go ahead.
People might not know what they're noticing, but people fucking notice. They might not know. Here's what I think of, like when you're listening, when I'm playing music, most of my shows it's at a restaurant or whatever, and people are like, and they're looking at their phone and and the music's playing, right? But when you see it, rarely it happens with us sometimes, but when I watch other really killer bands and people are there like, wait a second, and they want to listen to the band like, wait, I want to hear what they're doing.
Yeah.
People notice that. And they can't even tell you why, but they notice the shit that's happening right. They also notice the shit that's happening wrong. And they might not be like, well, that Alex Henley, his voice cracked 14 times. And no, but they're like, that was okay. I didn't kind of remember half the set because we were talking about that great thing we were talking about.
Right.
That's what people, they might not know it, but they notice it. Even if they're musicians, they might even notice it and still give you a pass. It's still fucking noticed. Sorry. I just
Okay, now you're just fucking getting in my head because now I'm thinking about all the times that I thought
good mission
no one,
accomplished.
no one noticed anything, but I was definitely in my own head, and now I'm thinking back to those times. Like, did they really notice that thing that I said that I did? Like my eye twitching. Did they notice all these things?
Probably not as much as you think they did.
Yeah, but okay. Now, all right, cool.
But
Alex.
in a town where music is so prevalent, you can go hear so many amazing people. For me to go out there and be, I'm okay. I'm better at jiu-jitsu. If I'm being honest, I think I'm better at jiu-jitsu than I am at music, but I really love music, and it really takes me to a place. When it's done right, it really takes me to a special place.
Yeah.
And so I do it for me more than anybody else. I would love for it to go out there and be heard by people. Man, I'm sorry. And you asked me how I market it or whatever. I mean, I try to do the stuff you're supposed to do in Facebook and Instagram. I wish that we weren't so reliant on that stuff as a society, but I know we are.
Yeah, it's a tool that we got to learn how to use properly. It's all it really is.
You know, you messaged me a couple times on Instagram, and it was quite a while in between responses because I'm just not on there as much. I'll go post.
Well,
and I forget to check messages or whatever. I'm just trying to stay off of the political shit. And
yeah. You can do a pretty good job of cultivating an algorithm that doesn't show you that stuff. Just report the stuff that you don't like to see, which I do all the time. And so, yeah, it is a tool that I use to get business, to reach out to artists, try to build a community. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it, for me, what I'm trying to do is just build a better place, build it how I want to see things. Like, I want to hear stories. I want to hear people's drama and problems with like their music industry, and how when I hear those problems, like, okay, how can we solve them? So that's what I want to see, and that's why I like these long form conversations, because I don't know, there's something interesting about all of this. I'm learning something new. I'm learning that I need to be more stressed out about things and how people are.
You probably don't. No, I guess the point of that is that my friend was right. My bandmate was right. I can't. And so like this last Saturday, we played a show, and I actively didn't do that. We played well. It's probably one of my better live performances. It was just, I felt more laid back, and I was like, I'm not going to go out there and poke fun at me or my band. You know, like I like, that's my sense of humor. I was raised on sitcoms, and I like that kind of like pokey humor sometimes, but I do it with people that I care about, and that's where it comes from. It was a great show, and I had fun, and we had good feedback, and I didn't have to say anything negative, even though my voice cracked a couple times. I also got a couple of woos from the audience.
Sure.
Yeah.
A good woo is a great indicator that you're doing good. When you are not, how do you deal with criticism, whether it be amongst yourself or from audience or from a bandmate? Like, what are you taking from that piece of information?
Man, I try not to take it too personally. If it's done, like my bandmate did it in such a nice, respectful way, it was hard to be upset about it. And like, I hear what you're saying. Even though I feel justified in why I did that, I can still understand why I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
And I took his advice, even though I had my caveats. Yeah, but okay, but I can have my yeah buts and still say, okay, I'll do that. I'll take her. Yeah, that's all right. Not a lot of people are critical. Really, people are too nice to say shit to your face oftentimes.
That's true. That is very true.
Or scared or something.
Right.
I'm kind of I will say, hey, you got some shit in your teeth, or that was good, man. Hey, I saw how it's funny how you made up from that. There was one show where I totally missed like what key I was supposed to be in. And I looked at the crowd and I yelled, "Jazz!" And one of my friends laughed at that, because it's all right,
That's fucking odd. That's clever. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if I made that up. Probably not. But
well, see, there you go. Don't self-deprecate. Just own it.
No, I just don't want to take.
No, just own it. Like, yeah,
valor.
I said that. Yeah, okay, fair. Still. So, do you ever get the imposter syndrome?
In music constantly.
Okay.
Yeah, in music constantly for sure. Again, I feel really confident in my jiu-jitsu.
Sure.
And I'm not a world champion. I've beaten some world champions, just not at worlds. So I wasn't a world champion.
So it doesn't count.
It doesn't count. It really doesn't. And it
feeds the ego. You
shouldn't. The pressure's different there, and some people perform better under the pressure.
Yeah.
And those guys deserve that title. And music, yeah, man. I play in a band full of people that are considerably better musicians than I am. They're just more learned. They practice more. They understand theory better. I watch even my better solos. I'm proud of that. I stayed in a really specific place on the guitar fretboard, and I know what people are doing, why they're going so much further. and I just don't have the confidence to do that. I'm going to hit too many wrong notes. I stay in a safe place, and I still hit wrong notes. And so I do have that imposter syndrome. I can sing well, and I can. My rhythm's good. My soloing is pretty just okay. And I was like, but I do it anyway because my music calls for it.
How do you manage your time? For example, before you showed up here, I was dealing with an internet issue. My speeds are fucking garbage. I have Google Fiber. We pay a good price.
Right.
And I have the previous podcast, which is very precious to me. I love the last one we did. I love them all, but it's the last
Some
one.
more than others.
Well, the last one I did was with one of my favorite drummers from my favorite band, Rickshaw Billy's Burger Patrol.
What's his name?
His name's Sean St. Germain.
Okay.
And they're awesome. They're great. I was very self-conscious about even inviting him on because he might say no and that fear of rejection. Anyways, so the internet was going god-awfully slow. I'm working on so many things right now. I'm just trying to make my way through this day to get to the next day. And this fucking internet thing is just eating me alive in my head right now. I had to put it to the back of my head. So that's an issue that I'm going to have to deal with. But when it comes to you, how do you manage your time and manage the issues? Like, what is the most important thing you need to take care of?
Well, I mean, just running my classes is the thing I have to do. I have to be there and make sure that nothing goes wrong. Everything goes off without a hitch. And it's really because like when I go tour, or if I'm out of town for any reason, but especially a long-term thing, like going out of the country or whatever, man, if something hits the fan, there's nothing I can do about it other than make some phone calls. But I have like a support system, like a hierarchy of people that's like, well, okay, if it's not you, then I'll call them, and somebody in there is going to help me out there. I know it. It's a small town and people care about the gym. Other than that, I just try to tackle shit as it comes up. I had a similar thing when I left today. My gym membership management system, I'm trying to make I do 1 week of kids summer camp a year, just so I can offer something. I don't want to do it all year. It's a pain in the butt. I like it, but it interrupts my life and the schedule of the gym. And I'm having an issue with them. I've done this thing. I need to do it several times, even recently in the last month or so. Now I'm trying to do it again, and there's something I'm missing. I don't know. It's like it's a little convoluted. So I sent a message. I'm complaining that they don't have instant support anymore. I got to wait for 24 hours. Maybe they've responded. Maybe they haven't. That's a really hassle. I want to get this done right now. Hey, don't stress about it. It's going to get done. As long as I didn't delete the file I needed or whatever you're dealing with or whatever, I'll get it uploaded. Okay. It's going to work, And if that
but podcast it has to be done right now.
Yeah, I know. I get that. Instant gratification. I get it. I don't know. I guess not sweating the small stuff is part of it. Man, I get anxious about shit too,
Yeah.
State of the world or state of my house. If my coffee table's too messy, it affects me. And I might have to shut everything down for a second to go attack that thing first.
Okay.
Did you ever hear of Dave Ramsey? He was a
I love the guy. Yeah.
He has the snowball effect thing.
Yeah.
I think and I did that once with my ex-wife, and I might not agree with him. I'm not particularly religious. I'm not anti-religion. I'm just
one thing I didn't like is the teething thing, or when you have to pay your dues to the church. Tithing. Sorry, words. I was like, really? I have to pay into this thing that doesn't pay taxes? That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was only one of the things that I really didn't.
It doesn't affect me in my world. I don't do that.
Right.
But I support other things.
Sure.
Other charity.
Absolutely.
But I do kind of have that approach. I liked getting that from there. It's like, so I can stop and clean my coffee table right now, and that's going to make my day a lot more peaceful. That is the snowball effect. All right, it's not going to make or break. It's not going to get any bills paid or anything, but that will make me more at ease with whatever. So, yeah, that kind of thing helps me out. That's time management, I guess.
Are you saying my coffee table is cluttered?
I didn't want to say it specifically. No, that's a thing that happens in my house. It's mostly my mess on your coffee table.
No, it is. Yeah, no, well, it is my mess. And this is my my wife. I call her my landlord because she initially she bought the house before I even met her, and then I married her. So I married into becoming a homeowner, and so I try not to be too controlling because I'm kind of not a neat freak, but I like things. I like to know where things are, and so I this is my fortress of solitude where I know everything's in place. I know everything's organized. I know everything's clean. I can vacuum here every day, and that emotion gets, I don't know, it makes me feel good that I'm cleaning things. The house, we have 2 cats, so that I'm constantly battling the the tumbleweeds of hair that are constantly. I'm like, God, dude,
the stink, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
No, they don't smell. It's just like it's their hair. I can't win that battle, and I never will until. Well, until
yeah, we don't have to. Yeah.
So we are well over an hour here. I have probably 2 more questions. When it comes to the recording process of things, how do you go about that? Are you working with producers? Are you working with a sound engineer? And what does the collaboration look like?
Man,
for you?
it is almost all me. I'm really glad.
Okay.
I think you're asking questions that I really wanted you to ask about today, and I appreciate that. No, and talking about my my imposter syndrome, this is where it doesn't come out the most. I feel like this is where I can express my musicianship at its best, because the first take is not usually my best. If I can go really fine tune what I want to say, I can make it sound pretty close to how I want it to sound. I can sound closer to those guitar players that I admire. They just do it every time, and it takes me a few tries to get there. And live, the pressure of doing it live makes it tough for me, not for them, and I admire the hell out of that, and that's what I would like to get to. But so for me, man, I really that's where I feel like, especially in the last year, I've been putting a lot more attention into the recording process and making it really just as precise as I'm capable of making it. I'm pretty proud of stuff that I'm doing lately. And shoot, what was your question?
Are you, well, it was about the recording process as well. Are you more critical of the way you're recording your voice or the way you're playing your instrument?
I'd say mostly instrument. My voice is more my tool than my instrument is.
Okay.
Like, I don't play jazz very well, but I hear all that stuff, man. I feel it. I really do. I feel all the intricacies. My fingers can't keep up. But with my recording process, I really handle almost all of it in-house. I have a few things I hire out, either to the guys I play with here in town, or like, for example, I've got a keyboard player that lives in Nashville. I've met him once briefly, but we've worked together online so much that we're like bros, I feel like now at this point. Really, it's pretty cool. And he's even said, like, if you ever have a gig, an important one, and somebody falls out, I'll make the trip for you. That's pretty cool. Thanks, man. This guy is a stud. This guy is one of those guys that he doesn't play a wrong note.
Yeah.
And so I don't really play keys. I can do a little bit, but this guy makes it sing. So I'll hire that part out. But he sends me the track. I mix it all. I master it. I do all of it. And I'm really proud. And one thing I want to talk about is the song I have coming out in 2 days. It's called It'll Be All Right. It's a kind of funky little love song from my wife, Elise.
Okay.
And
aww.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
It's for Elise?
It is for Elise. Yep. A little French tongue twister. I like it. Nerd.
Got him.
And man, it's like it's doing all the stuff I wanted to be doing for years, man. And this guy was a big part of it, Vince, and I want people to go check it out because I'm so proud of what it does. It's my first song that I've recorded vocals post surgery. Oh. So it was like, will I, won't I? It was a question. Not everybody's voice comes back after that. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking for me. Yeah. Before I ask my last question, where are you playing? What should we look out for? Any events? Yeah, I mean, just kind of usual gigs around town, like
around town, as in Austin
Bastrop.
Or Bastrop?
And Austin. Okay. Austin, yeah, no, Austin is what the word I meant to say.
Off the top of your head, rip those dates out.
Yeah, well, we just played one at Lambert's and it went really well. It's a great gourmet barbecue joint downtown, like Second Street, something like that. And great feedback, so I'm sure we'll be back there. Okay. We play Skylark Lounge a lot. Do you know where that is?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, so we're there this Sunday ahead of Soul Man Sam. So if you're out,
hell yeah.
Come see us if you want to.
What time is that? Hell yeah.
It's 6 to 7:30 and the Soul Man Sam's. It's a fun show, dude. It's a fun show. I hope, bring some people. It's fun, really. In fact, the last one we played, I didn't realize until like the week of, it was Super Bowl Sunday. Oh. I feel like such a goober for lining that one out. But, it ended up being all right. The crowd got okay towards halfway through our set.
When there's a big event like that, if you can get anybody through the doors, that's pretty impressive.
There are a handful of people that don't really care about football, and so it's all right. It didn't bother me. My band was okay to do it.
This is a big Super Bowl for people who are football fans. We didn't want. Were you familiar who played?
Sure, yeah. Okay. And they had it on the screen.
Yeah, we weren't. I think as a collective, we just did not want to see the Kansas City Chiefs win another fucking Super Bowl.
Mission accomplished.
And we were all elated, and it's kind of a sad Super Bowl for me. I had to watch it by myself, but either way, it's fine.
Oh, man.
Next year,
any tissues?
No.
Okay.
What was it? Oh, so last question before we wrap this up. If you were to start over again, specifically in the musical career, and build a career, how would you go about doing it? Now, keep in mind, you have to make money and you have bills to pay in 2025. So how would you go about building that musical career?
I would treat it more like a job and less like a hobby, like something. I mean, I do love it, but like the guy I'm talking about that gave me my appreciated, solicited criticism recently, man, that guy is a Vulcan. He calls himself a Vulcan, and he practices so much every day, and it shows. He's so stinking good, man. He just, everything he does on the guitars, and he's actually my keyboard player, but he plays guitar more, and he does both effortlessly, and it's really, really impressive. So that is the step one. I would just do that more at a younger age where I didn't have as many things tying me down or obligations. I would do that. For the first 7 years I played guitar, I played all the time, and I wouldn't put it down, but I just didn't get as good as a lot of people did in that 7 years. I needed more time.
Okay.
So that's it. And, I guess if I were doing it now, or if I were that age now, then I would put a lot of emphasis into the social media aspect of it and really learn that. Being my age, a little bit longer in the tooth and not wanting to waste a lot of time, I just don't have as much time to spend on that. So it's hard for me to break that off and justify it. But I do. I make time and I post. I think they say, post X amount of time. This type of content, this many times per day or whatever. I don't have it in me.
I get that sentiment. But if you're building a fan base, if you're building an audience, there's people out there who want to see who you are, and they appreciate those posts. And it may not be like the 1.2 million followers of so-and-so artists, it might not be that wide a range, but there are fans out there. There are people who appreciate your art and, appreciate your contribution to, making their life a little bit better. So that's the way I think of things. And
I like it. I do like that for sure. Hard work pays off. There's sayings in jiu-jitsu. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like hard work will outbeat talent every time, kind of thing. I'm totally paraphrasing and ruining it, but that's the kind of thing. It's like you can be 100% better than me, but if I work 200% harder than you, then it's going to be made up. The difference will be made up eventually. So I'm a big fan of that. But I do want to say, kind of to wrap it up, that because music is something that feeds my soul and doesn't feed my mouth, I'd rather focus on the art side of it. I think there is something, if it's undeniably good, people won't deny it. And I think it's somebody like Adele or somebody like that whose voice is so good. She wasn't what people were looking for, but it's what they wanted to hear. And so she was so good that it was just there was no way she was going to be held back by any physical shortcoming or whatever you wanted to say. And that's it, man. I would like to aim for that. I don't know if I can. I would like to aim for that level of goodness where the people stop talking and like, wait a second, what are they doing? Like I mentioned earlier.
Right.
Or people save it on a playlist once it comes up, which is happening to some of my music. So it's more than it ever did.
I mean, just the fact that one person's doing that but
it's like thousands.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
not hundreds of thousands.
Right,
or millions.
Yeah, thousands is better than, there's artists who are pumping out music that aren't getting any plays. So I don't know, you just got to take what you get and be happy with it.
Will you go listen to my stuff?
Yeah, I'll go listen to your stuff. I'll come to Skylark Lounge and check you out. Sean, the drummer, was here yesterday, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're playing at Chalmers. Come check us out." I'm like,
I haven't been there, but I've heard about it.
It's an awesome spot. It's owned by the owners of Armadillo Den, Dainty Dildo, as I like to call it, also called Dainty Dillo. It's just, how do you not make that joke? And so the good thing that I keep hearing about these Chalmers and the Armadillo and the owners of that is they're taking care of the musicians, which I appreciate, because I want these venues to take care of the musicians so I can keep giving them my money for the beer that I constantly drink at their establishment. So it's just, we keep feeding each other, and that's great. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and efforts and coming all the way from Bastrop, man. I didn't know that. That means a lot to me.
This is great. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
For having me out.
All right. Well, let's take some photos. All right, ladies and gentlemen. That was Alex, and I can't thank him enough for coming all the way out here from Bastrop just to sit down and have a chat with me. Be sure to follow him on Spotify. Go check out his music there. Follow him on Instagram as well. And thank you so much to the viewers. Thank you so much to the listeners. I hope you got something out of this episode, and I hope you're doing well. God bless.